Hello everybody, I'm Eternal Flame here, and today I'm here to talk about Yuji in this most recent chapter, and how Yuji popped off, and how this is going to show Yuji's ascendance to becoming one of the strongest characters in Jujutsu Kaisen. Now, I'm not going to make a chapter review this week, and this video is effectively going to serve as the chapter review, mainly because if I were to make this video and a chapter review, it would effectively be repeating information, and I don't think anybody actually wants to hear that. So I'm just going to put basically everything that happened in this chapter in this one video, because it's all really focused on Yuji. Mainly because we find out a lot about Yuji, a lot about Yuji's potential, and a lot of interesting things, as well as Yuji displaying a lot of interesting things in this chapter, and more so, two very interesting things. And if you've already read the chapter, then you already know what these interesting things are that we're going to be talking about, that is going to show Yuji's growth rate, and why Yuji's likely to become one of the strongest sorcerers in Jujutsu Kaisen. So, without further ado, let's actually get into this. Up first, the meat and potatoes of all this chapter, and the most interesting thing we learned about is we finally get a few things confirmed to us about Yuji's creation, which one thing that's very interesting that we learned about is the fact that Yuji Itadori, Yuji's father, is the one who holds the soul of Sukuna's brother, and that is the origin point of Yuji having such an incredibly powerful soul. As Urame confirms something else that's really interesting in this chapter, that my speculation was actually right on where Yuji's power-up in 214 came from, where Urame basically says that Yuji shouldn't have gotten as strong as he did just from the residue curse energy from Sukuna inside of Yuji. And considering they have a discussion about the soul and the power of Jin's soul, then I do think that my speculation was correct, that Yuji's soul was being held back a large amount of how strong Yuji actually should have been this entire time, because most of his soul was dedicated to suppressing Sukuna, but now he no longer had Sukuna inside of him, he was able to use the full power of his soul, and as we know from Mahito, the body follows in the shape of the soul, thus Yuji would have gotten a massive power-up as a result of that. Now, this is very important to understand, because there's something else that is established in this chapter, which is the fact that Jin and Sukuna have the same soul because they are twins, which that to some degree seems to have gotten passed down to Yuji Itadori himself. However, I do believe that it's the full-on soul from Sukuna's brother that got passed down to Yuji Itadori. The main reason that I do believe this is because of the fact that Sukuna mentioned that the soul ended up in Kenjaku's hands in this chapter. Furthermore, as Sukuna himself says, he would not have a child for no reason. If Yuji didn't have the full degree of Jin's soul, something that we know Kenjaku is very capable of doing, because we already know through the Culling games that Kenjaku is able to separate a soul from a body and put it into a new body, because he literally did it with every single Culling games player, as well as Sukuna himself, then in my opinion it wouldn't make sense if he didn't place the soul fully inside of Yuji Itadori. Furthermore, we also know it's fully possible for a soul to be fully submerged into a body. After all, that's what happened with a lot of the Culling games players, when one of them ended up winning out and the other soul was just completely killed off. So it could have been the case that Jin's soul was just completely submerged into Yuji and giving him access to this massive amount of strength that he has access to. It could even be possible that Jin decided to willingly submerge himself inside of Yuji's soul. Now, the reason why I see this being so important to justify is purely because of the fact that Kenjaku just having a child that would only have a portion of that soul and not the full soul wouldn't really make sense to me, at the very least, for the purpose that Yuji exists with, which is to coexist with Sukuna. Now, of course, whether Yuji does actually have the full soul, or even just a portion of the soul, or just that's why he has such a strong soul, isn't exactly fully important, but it is important to understanding why Yuji's potential is potentially equal to that, or if not even greater than that of Sukuna. Just based on this alone, Urame made the assumption that Yuji's latent potential is equal to that of Sukuna. Hi, this is Future Eternal Flame here, and I'm actually here because I forgot to mention something in this entire video, which is the mention of the fact that Yuji is, sealed with Sukuna's finger inside of him. He does have a Sukuna finger sealed inside of him, so that is also very important to establishing Yuji's potential. It doesn't really add that much to the video, but I'm just going to talk about this now because this is something very important. Anyways, Future Eternal Flame out. Enjoy Past Eternal Flame. Furthermore, I actually don't believe that this is everything that we have seen about how Yuji was produced and built, mainly because, as I have pointed out in a few of my videos by this point, I don't think that Kenjaku picked Kaori Itadori for no reason to have Yuji as a child, especially considering the fact he kept Kaori's cursed technique of anti-gravity system. I genuinely don't think that he picked Kaori for no reason, and I think Kaori is also going to have some factor into why Yuji's going to have such massive amounts of potential, and does already have massive amounts of potential to grow. Furthermore, not to forget, there's someone else that's very important in building Yuji to become the monster that he is today, which is his mother, well, technically the brain inside of his mother, which is Kenjaku. So not just does Yuji have direct relation to the strongest sorcerer in history, the strongest sorcerer from the strongest era of Jujutsu, Sukuna himself, but he also has direct relation to the oldest sorcerer and smartest sorcerer in terms of Jujutsu knowledge in history. Now, it could be possible Sukuna does know a bit more than Kenjaku, but I really doubt it, because it does feel like Kenjaku is older than him and is that much more explorative than him, purely because of how his experiments tend to work and how he is as a person. I would put more of a bet on Kenjaku knowing more than Sukuna, and I think a lot of people do agree with me on that. However, he is the son of someone who has an open domain, someone who's been around for 1,000 years, while also being directly related to another person who has an open domain and is called the pinnacle of Jujutsu, all of that to create a potential monster like Yuji Itadori. However, while Yuji's parentage certainly plays an important part in Yuji's potential and his ability to grow, I think there was something much more important in Yuji's potential and ability to grow, and that is his mindset and his determination and ideals. As Sukuna himself called out about Yuji, that Yuji is the only person who stands toe-to-toe with him in terms of ideals, that no one else actually stands toe-to-toe with him in ideals, mainly because Sukuna had existed in Yuji for so long that he knew those ideals were true, and not just that, but he knew the determination and power behind those ideals were real. Determination behind an ideal that allowed Yuji to surpass his limits and what truly allows Yuji to grow. After all, we have seen his determination and ideals allow him to grow once before in his battle against Mahito at the final part of the battle against Mahito, when he finally created a new ideal for himself, and he and Mahito were the same. With the help of Todo, it allowed him to grow heavily, allowing him to land a total of 3 black flashes on Mahito. Now he was right back in the right proper headspace and finally put Mahito down. Well, before Kenjaku kill stole him, but this is just another case of when Yuji grew thanks to his ideals being his greatest strength, just as Sukuna had pointed out to him. It's his ideals and his focus that allow him to push past his limits so heavily and allow him to truly reach new heights, much faster than most people his age would be able to do so. The only other person who has similar rivaling growth to Yuji Itadori being Yuta Akotsu himself, the prodigy that was believed to be the second to Satoru Gojo himself. But more than that, his ideals and his mindsets are one willing to completely burn himself away, one willing to not care about what happens to himself in the future or the past, one willing to take any amount of damage, one willing to do anything whatsoever so long as it means he has a chance at getting Megami out, so long as it means he has a chance at killing Sukuna, as that is all that matters, as he has no care at all for what can come next and no fear at all for anything else, similar to the mindset that Sukuna had described as necessary for Jogo to be able to reach the level of Satoru Gojo. That is the mindset that Yuji has, and that is what allowed him to gain so much strength. A mindset that allowed him to push through what would normally be extremely difficult for a lot of people to achieve. After all, Yuji in a month-long amount of time was able to learn how to use blood manipulation, how to directly affect the soul and lower the output of opponents, and most of all, learn how to use RCT to an extremely high level, at least in terms of what he could be healing for himself, as he has healed over 5 lethal wounds to his own body, something that requires a large amount of cursed energy. But most of all, Yuji now has been able to land not 1, not 2, but 8 black flashes in this entire battle. 8 consecutive black flashes that were comboed into each other. And you know how absolutely insane that is, considering he basically doubled the consecutive record for black flashes. This is down to such a point where Sukuna himself is commenting on the fact that it feels like Yuji can combo into these black flashes, and it's absolutely insane. Now, I do want to clear this up. I don't actually think that Yuji is affecting the soul in these punches, and the reason why I don't actually think that Yuji is affecting the soul is mainly because to land the black flash you need to be extremely in the zone and you need to be extremely focused. So the thoughts of trying to directly target Megami's soul is something that's more likely going to get in the way of actually landing the black flash. So I think right now Yuji's just trying to massively weaken Sukuna down before landing normal soul punches again. Or well, I do think that he is affecting the soul, because we do know from the Mahito fight that Yuji's punches are able to affect the soul even when they're a black flash. I mean, more specifically, he's not really trying to target communicating with Megami right now, mainly because I do think Sukuna would make a comment on his output being that much more nerfed if it was a black flash nerfing him, but I'm not entirely sure. It could be very possible that he actually is nerfing the soul with each and every single one of these punches, and we simply do not know. However, more importantly, these black flashes are going to have another effect on Yuji, because let me remind you guys on what the base effect of the black flash actually actually does, which after you land the Black Flash, you're able to bring out 120% of your potential. And your control over your curse energy becomes significantly easier for you to do because of the fact that you have a much easier grasp of curse energy. Now, some of you guys might be thinking the amps you get from a Black Flash doesn't stack. However, we do actually know that the amps from a Black Flash do stack for a couple of reasons. Number one, Sukuna needs to land several Black Flashes in order to fully regain his output, which is just straight up confirming that they do stack. But more importantly, number two, in order for Mahito to unlock his true form, he needed to land a total of 2 Black Flashes, the second Black Flash giving him an even deeper grasp of his soul than the first Black Flash did. All of this is just to say Yuji is now going to be operating off of 8 Black Flashes, amping his potential and basically stacking. And you all know what that means for Yuji's insane levels of growth. And more importantly, and this is something I don't think people understand about the Black Flash and how it actually allows people to grow, is the fact that the Black Flash amp can be permanent. Now, it's technically not permanent, however, if one is able to understand the feeling better and grasp it, it will drastically amp their curse energy control. For example, Yuji, after his battle against Mahito after landing 3 Black Flashes, was compared to a demon god in comparison to what he was before by Choso's own comparison. Specifically commenting on the fact that Yuji has now added control and finesse to his punches, mainly because of the fact that the Black Flash does amp your curse energy control. Now, he doesn't directly say that part, but the Black Flash is the only thing that would have allowed his curse energy control to be amped that fast, which is why I do think that the amp Yuji's about to get from these Black Flashes are also about to be permanent, because I think Yuji's going to memorize the feeling of curse energy control he's about to get from these Black Flashes, which is going to drastically amp his already insane power level. And if you want to find out how strong Yuji was before he landed these 8 Black Flashes, check out this video on screen about how strong is Yuji in Shinjuku. However, back to the actual video, that's enough of a self-plug for now. However, we're going to get into the much more important thing that Yuji had gained from landing these Black Flashes, and that's only going to grow from this point onward. As stated by the narrator, that Yuji had access to 2 curse techniques. The first curse technique that he got from consuming his brothers from brothers 4 to 9, which was blood manipulation. However, he gained a technique from having Sukuna's curse energy imbued inside of him, that was awakened from the Black Flash, which was the Shrine technique. As Yuji now has access to Cleave and Dismantle, and maybe even the Fire Arrow technique, and whatever else Sukuna has inside of his arsenal. Now, currently, Yuji is not that experienced with the Cleave and Dismantle, which is why his Cleave and Dismantle has low output at the current moment, as Sukuna commented on himself that it's because it's the first time Yuji is using it that it has weak output. So while it might be incredibly weak on Yuji right now, as the battle continues, especially if he continues to land Black Flashes like this, that Cleave and Dismantle is going to be doing numbers to characters in the verse, and it's just going to keep getting more and more terrifying the more and more experience that Yuji actually gets from it. And he's just going to keep growing further and further in this fight until he completes his goal, until he completes his mission, because that is the type of fighter Yuji is. Once Yuji has a mission, he will do absolutely everything that's going to be in his power to complete that mission. Whether that mission is defeating Mahito, whether that mission is defeating Sukuna, or whether that mission is getting Megumi back. Yuji is the type of person who will complete a mission no matter what and do anything that is necessary in order to complete that mission. If he doesn't have enough power to do it, he is going to force himself to get stronger, whether through the Black Flashes, or just getting better in his abilities, or just adapting. His mentality and his mindset has always been one of the most important things for understanding his growth levels. After all, it's his mentality and his mindset, as well as the potential that he was built with, that allowed him to reach the level that he has reached so far. After all, without either of them, he wouldn't have been able to reach this level of strength that he has reached in the narrative itself. The level of strength that Yuji is rapidly approaching that Kenjaku talked about beforehand. The level of strength that is going to be necessary to coexist with Sukuna to become the Eye of the Storm for curses. And that is what I believe is the true key to understanding the level of potential and level of strength that Yuji has that is going to allow him to ascend to become one of the strongest characters within Jujutsu Kaisen's history. As Yuji represents the opposite of Sukuna in that way as well. While Sukuna is the representation of someone who wants to get stronger, so he's going to get stronger as a result of that, he's going to take whatever path to fun there is while he takes that path to get stronger, Yuji is someone who will need to get stronger, and he will make sure that he can fulfill that need. For whatever purpose he does need to get stronger, if he is challenged, he will meet the challenge. That is the ideal battle that Sukuna and Yuji stand for. Sukuna sees strength as a desire, while Yuji sees strength as a tool and nothing more than a tool. A tool that will get stronger and sharpen with time if it needs to get stronger. One that is in the hands of a master crafter will always be able to force it to get stronger, while Sukuna is someone who will want to constantly experiment and push that tool to its limits, not because he needs for it to get stronger, but because he wants it to get stronger, because he constantly wants to learn more and more about the tool. The two are the opposite sides of strength that will keep growing. Not equally, but one will always grow to meet the other, because one exists as the need for them to reach. So I believe it's a mixture of Yuji's ideals and who he is as a person, as well as the innate potential that he has from both Kenjaku as well as Sukuna himself, in order to allow him to reach the heights that he's going to reach in the future. But that's just my opinion on why Yuji is going to become one of the strongest characters in the future, and I want to hear what you guys think in the comment section down below. I'm gonna see y'all later, peace out.